"Shut up, you charity case." The slap echoed through the luxury store as he dragged me across the floor. The crowd laughed. Cameras flashed. But what they didn't know was that the woman they just humiliated was the wife of the man who owned everything. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. My name is Emma, and I am married to one of the most successful businessmen in the country. My husband, Richard, owns a chain of luxury retail stores that stretch across every major city. People know his name. They respect his brand. But very few people know me, and that is exactly how I prefer it. Money changes people, they say. Maybe that is true for some, but not for me. Even after marrying Richard 15 years ago, I never developed a taste for designer handbags or expensive jewelry. I still wake up early, make my own coffee, and wear the same comfortable sweater I bought years ago from a small shop downtown. My friends think it is strange. My husband finds it charming. But for me it is simple. I want to see the world as it really is, not through the filter of wealth and privilege. Richard built his empire from nothing. I was there in the beginning when we had just one small store and big dreams. I helped him create the customer service policies. I wrote the company motto myself: every customer matters regardless of who they are. We believed in treating people with dignity and respect. We believed that kindness should never depend on someone's bank account. But lately I have been wondering, has that message survived as the company grew? Do our employees still remember why we started this business in the first place? Or have they become like so many others, judging people by their appearance, their clothes, their perceived worth? These questions kept me awake at night. So one Tuesday morning I made a decision. I would find out for myself. I stood in front of my closet, looking past the designer dresses and expensive shoes. Instead, I pulled out an old beige coat I had worn in college. It was faded now, with a small stain on the sleeve that never quite came out. I found a pair of flat shoes that had seen better days, their leather scuffed and worn. I tied my hair in a simple bun, removed my wedding ring and diamond earrings, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked ordinary, simple, forgettable, perfect. Richard was already at work when I left the house. I did not tell him what I was doing. He would have worried, or worse, he would have tried to stop me. This was something I needed to do alone. I took the subway downtown instead of calling our driver. Nobody looked at me twice. I was just another woman in the crowd, rushing to wherever ordinary people rush to on a Tuesday morning. For the first time in years I felt invisible, and it felt like freedom. The flagship store stood on the corner of Fifth Avenue, its glass windows reflecting the morning sun. I had helped Richard choose this location 12 years ago. Back then it was just an empty building with potential. Now it was a palace of luxury with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. I stood outside for a moment, watching customers walk in and out. Some looked happy, others looked rushed, but most just looked through the staff as if they were part of the furniture. It made my heart sink a little. I took a deep breath and pushed through the revolving door. The smell hit me first. Expensive perfume mixed with the scent of new leather and fresh flowers. The store was beautiful, I had to admit. Every display was perfect, every product arranged with care. But something felt cold about it too. Sterile. Unwelcoming. A few customers turned to look at me as I walked in. Their eyes moved from my face to my coat to my shoes. I saw their expressions change, subtle but clear. Their lips pressed together slightly. Their eyes moved away quickly. The message was obvious: she does not belong here. I smiled politely and walked toward the perfume counter. A young saleswoman was helping a customer who wore a fur coat and carried a designer handbag. I waited patiently beside them, but the saleswoman did not even glance my way. She finished with the first customer, then turned to arrange bottles on the shelf, her back to me. "Excuse me," I said softly. She looked over her shoulder. "We will be with you in a moment," she said, her tone flat and dismissive. Then she walked away to help another customer who had just arrived, someone wearing expensive jewelry and designer sunglasses. I understood then. I was not being helped because I did not look like I could afford anything here. The irony almost made me laugh. This was my store. I had chosen the paint colors on these walls. But right now I was nobody to them. I moved to another section, browsing through silk scarves. Each one cost more than most people earn in a week. I touched one gently, feeling the smooth fabric between my fingers. It was beautiful, and I thought about buying it for my sister's birthday. "Can I help you?" I turned to see a tall man in an expensive suit. His cologne was overwhelming, the kind that announces someone's presence before they even speak. His name tag read Preston with the title Regional Consultant underneath. "I am just looking," I said with a smile. He did not smile back. Instead, His eyes traveled up and down my appearance with barely concealed contempt. "These scarves are quite expensive," he said slowly as if speaking to a child. "Perhaps you would be more comfortable in one of our outlet stores? There is one about 20 miles from here." My cheeks burned, but I kept my voice steady. "I am fine here, thank you." Preston's expression hardened. "Listen, I do not know what you are trying to do, but this store caters to a certain clientele. We do not appreciate people coming in to waste our time or take photos for social media." "I am not here to take photos," I said quietly. "I am here to shop." He laughed, a harsh sound that made several people turn and look. "Shop? Do you even know what a single item costs in here? That scarf you are touching is $3,000. I could feel other customers watching now. Some looked curious, others looked uncomfortable, but nobody said anything. Nobody stepped in to help. "I am aware of the prices," I said, my voice still calm. "And I would like to purchase this scarf, please." Preston's face turned red. I realized then that my calmness was making him angrier. Men like him want to see fear or submission. Quiet dignity confuses them. "You are aware of the prices?" he repeated mockingly. "Then show me your credit card. Show me you can actually afford it." "I do not need to show you anything," I said. "If you do not want to help me, please call another staff member." That was when the manager appeared. His name was Marcus, and I recognized him immediately. He had worked for Richard for 8 years, starting as a floor supervisor. I had met him at several company events, though always as Richard's wife, always dressed in expensive clothes with my hair done professionally. He looked right at me now and did not recognize me at all. "What seems to be the problem here?" Marcus asked, his tone already defensive. Preston pointed at me like I was evidence in a crime. "This woman is causing a disturbance. She is clearly not here to make a legitimate purchase." Marcus looked at me, his expression cold. "Ma'am, if you are not here to buy something, I will have to ask you to leave. We have other customers to serve." I felt my heart sink, not from hurt but from disappointment. These were Richard's employees. These were the people we had trained, the people we had trusted to represent our values. And they had forgotten everything. "I am here to buy something," I said one more time, my voice quiet but firm. "I have money. I have a credit card. I am a customer just like everyone else here." Preston stepped closer, invading my space. His face was twisted with anger now, all pretense of professionalism gone. "Shut up," he hissed. "Just shut up, you charity case." And then he hit me. The slap was so hard that the sound echoed through the entire store like a gunshot. My head snapped to the side, my cheek exploding with pain. For a moment, everything went silent. I could not hear anything except the ringing in my ears. Then the gasp started. I touched my face, feeling the heat radiating from where his hand had connected. My vision blurred with tears that I refused to let fall. I would not cry. I would not give him that satisfaction. But Preston was not finished. Before I could even process what had happened, his hand clamped around my upper arm like a vice. His fingers dug into my skin so hard I knew there would be bruises. "I told you to shut up," he snarled, his face inches from mine. "People like you need to learn your place." Then he dragged me. My feet stumbled as he pulled me across the polished marble floor. My purse fell from my shoulder, spilling its contents. My cheap lipstick, my old wallet, coins rolling across the floor. Everything about me exposed as simple and ordinary. "Get your hands off me," I said, trying to pull free. But his grip was too strong. He dragged me through the store, past the frozen customers, past the staff members who did nothing, who said nothing, who just stood there with their mouths open. And then he shoved me through the front door. I stumbled on the threshold, my knees hitting the concrete sidewalk outside. The pain was sharp and immediate, but not as sharp as the humiliation. I could hear laughter from inside the store. I could hear Preston's voice saying, "That is how you deal with people who do not belong." I pushed myself up slowly, my hands shaking. My coat was dirty now, streaked with dust from the floor. My knees were scraped and bleeding. But I stood up straight, smoothed down my coat, and took a breath. People on the street had stopped to stare. Some had their phones out, recording. I could see the little red dots that meant they were filming, that this moment was being captured and would soon be shared with the world. Good, I thought. Let them see. Let everyone see what happens when people forget the value of human dignity. I looked back through the glass doors at Preston. He was standing there with his arms crossed, looking proud of himself. Marcus stood beside him, not stopping him, not correcting him, just accepting that this was normal behavior. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run back in there and tell them who I was, to watch their faces change when they realized what they had done. But I did not. Instead, I said quietly, just loud enough for Preston to hear through the open door, "You will regret this." Then I turned and walked away. My head high, my back straight, my dignity intact. Behind me I could hear more laughter. I could hear someone say, "She is crazy." Someone else said, "She probably deserved it." But I kept walking. One foot in front of the other, even though my knees hurt, even though my face was throbbing, even though my heart was breaking for what my husband's company had become. I did not know it then, but those videos were already uploading. Already spreading. Already being shared with thousands, then millions of people. By the time I got home, the whole city would know what had happened. And by tomorrow the whole world would be watching. The subway ride home was a blur. I sat in the corner of the car, my face turned toward the window so nobody could see the red mark on my cheek. My hands would not stop shaking. Every time the train jolted, pain shot through my bruised knees. An elderly woman sitting across from me kept glancing over with concern in her eyes. Finally, she leaned forward and asked gently, "Are you all right, dear?" I managed a small smile. "I will be. Thank you." She did not look convinced, but she nodded and left me alone with my thoughts. What had just happened? How had things gone so wrong? These were questions I knew the answers to, but accepting them was harder. The company had grown too fast. Richard had hired too many people without properly training them. The core values we had started with had been buried under profit margins and sales targets. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe people just showed their true nature when they thought nobody important was watching. By the time I reached my stop, my phone was buzzing constantly in my purse. Text messages, notifications, calls from numbers I did not recognize. I ignored them all and focused on getting home. Our house sat at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by tall trees and a high fence. To anyone passing by, it looked like just another nice home. They did not know about the acres of land behind it, the swimming pool, the guest house. That was how we liked it. Private. Peaceful. I let myself in through the front door and stood in the hallway for a moment, catching my reflection in the large mirror. My hair had fallen out of its bun. My coat was dirty and torn at the shoulder. My face was pale except for the angry red mark on my left cheek, already starting to bruise. I looked like someone who had been attacked. Because I had been. "Emma? Is that you?" Richard's voice came from his study. He must have come home early. That was unusual for a Tuesday. "Yes," I called back, my voice not quite steady. I heard his footsteps, quick and purposeful, and then he appeared in the hallway. The moment he saw me, he stopped dead. "What happened to your face?" The concern in his voice, the shock in his eyes, it all broke through the wall I had built around my emotions. But I still did not cry. Instead, I pulled out my phone and found the video that someone had already tagged me in. It had been posted 20 minutes ago and already had 50,000 views. I handed him the phone without saying a word. I watched his face as he watched the video. I saw the exact moment he recognized the store. I saw his jaw clench when Preston slapped me. I saw his hands form into fists when Preston dragged me across the floor and threw me outside. When the video ended, Richard was silent for a long moment. Then he carefully placed my phone on the hall table. His movements were controlled, deliberate, like he was holding back something powerful. "That was our flagship store," he said quietly. "Yes." "Our employees? Our manager?" "Yes." "And you went there dressed like..." He gestured at my outfit, then stopped himself. "Why, Emma? Why would you do that?" "Because I needed to know," I said simply. I needed to know if our values still meant anything, or if they had become just words on a wall. Richard ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he only made when he was deeply troubled. "And now you know." "Now I know." He looked at me, then really looked at me, seeing past the bruise and the dirty clothes to the hurt underneath. "I am so sorry," he said. "This should never have happened. Not to you, not to anyone. It is not your fault." "Yes, it is," he said firmly. "I built this company. I hired these people. I set the culture or failed to. This is absolutely my fault." He pulled out his own phone and started making calls. First to his head of security, then to his legal team, then to his PR department. His voice was calm but cold, the voice of a CEO who was about to make some very serious decisions. While he talked, I went upstairs and changed out of my dirty clothes. I washed my face carefully, wincing when the water touched my bruised cheek. In the mirror, I looked at myself again. Tomorrow, I thought. Tomorrow everything changes. By morning, the video had gone viral. 20 million views. Every news channel was covering it. Social media was on fire with outrage. People were calling for boycotts of Richard's stores. They were sharing their own stories of being mistreated by sales staff, of being judged for their appearance, of being made to feel less than human. Richard barely slept. I could hear him in his study all night, making calls, sending emails, planning. When I came downstairs at 6 in the morning, he was already dressed in his suit, looking tired but determined. "We are going to the store," he said. "Both of us. Right now." "Richard, are you sure?" "I am absolutely sure," he interrupted. "They need to see you. They need to face what they did. And every employee in that store needs to understand that this ends today." The drive into the city was quiet. Our driver kept glancing at us in the rearview mirror, clearly aware of what had happened but too professional to say anything. News vans were already parked outside the store when we arrived. Reporters rushed toward our car the moment it stopped. "Mr. Sterling, what are you going to do about the assault? Is your wife pressing charges? Will there be firings?" Richard held up a hand. "I will make a statement after I have spoken to my staff. Please respect our privacy right now." He came around and opened my door himself, offering his hand. I took it and stepped out. I was wearing a simple but elegant dress today, my hair styled professionally, my wedding ring back on my finger. I wanted them to see the difference, to understand the message. Dignity and worth are not determined by clothes. The store had not opened yet, but all the employees were inside for an emergency meeting. Through the glass doors I could see them gathered, looking nervous. When Richard and I walked in, every conversation stopped. Marcus, the manager, saw us first. His face went white. Then Preston turned around. I watched the recognition hit him like a physical blow. His confident smile disappeared. His eyes went wide. He looked from me to Richard and back again, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "You," he finally whispered. "You are my wife," Richard finished for him, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Emma Sterling, co-founder of this company. The woman who wrote every customer service policy you were supposed to follow. The woman who created our company motto. The woman you assaulted yesterday." The silence in the store was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Richard's voice grew louder, not shouting but commanding. "Yesterday my wife came to this store as a test. She wanted to see if our values had survived as we grew. She wanted to know if our employees still treated every customer with dignity and respect, regardless of how they looked." He paused, letting that sink in. "Clearly we failed that test. And I take full responsibility for that failure. But responsibility also means accountability." He turned to Marcus. "You are fired. Effective immediately. You stood by and watched a customer get assaulted in your store and you did nothing. You do not deserve to work here." Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Richard held up his hand. "Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings." Then Richard turned to Preston. The man was shaking now, all his arrogance gone. "As for you," Richard said slowly, "you put your hands on another person in violence. You humiliated someone for the crime of looking ordinary. You violated every principle this company stands for." Preston dropped to his knees. Actually dropped to his knees right there on the marble floor. "Please, Mr. Sterling, I did not know. I'm so sorry. Please do not fire me. I have a family. I have." "You should have thought about that before you hit my wife," Richard said coldly. "You are not just fired. I am pressing charges for assault. My lawyers will be in contact with you." 2 security guards stepped forward to escort Preston out. As they led him away, he looked back at me with something that might have been an apology in his eyes. But it was too late for apologies now. After Preston and Marcus were gone, Richard addressed the remaining staff. About 30 people stood before us, their faces showing various degrees of shock, shame, and fear. But Richard did not speak next. He looked at me and nodded. It was my turn. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. These people had seen me at my most vulnerable yesterday. Today they were seeing who I really was. The contrast was deliberate and important. "My name is Emma Sterling," I began, my voice steady. "Some of you may have met me before at company events. Most of you probably did not recognize me yesterday. And that was the point." I took a breath and continued. "I dressed in old, ordinary clothes because I wanted to see how you treat people when you think they are nobody important. When you think they cannot hurt your career or complain to your boss. When you think their dignity does not matter." I could see some employees looking down at their shoes, unable to meet my eyes. Yesterday I was ignored. I was mocked. I was judged. And eventually I was assaulted right here in this beautiful store that my husband and I built from nothing. But here is what you need to understand. I was not the first person this has happened to. I was just the first person who happened to be married to the CEO. A few employees were crying now, quietly. How many other customers have you treated this way? I asked. How many people have walked through these doors hoping to buy something special, only to be made to feel small and unwanted because they did not look rich enough? How many people left here with their dignity damaged because you decided they did not matter? I paused, letting the weight of those questions settle over the room. Every customer matters, I said, quoting our company motto. I wrote those words 15 years ago. I believed them then and I believe them now. But somewhere along the way this company forgot what they meant. You forgot what they meant. I looked at each face in turn. Kindness is not a luxury item, I said. Respect is not something you only give to people who look wealthy. Human dignity is not for sale. These are basic principles that should guide every interaction you have, whether you are serving a billionaire or someone buying their first lipstick with money they saved for weeks. My voice grew stronger. Starting today, things are going to change. My husband and I are creating a new program called the Humanity Initiative. Every employee in every store will go through mandatory training on empathy, respect, and treating all people with dignity. We will have secret shoppers testing you regularly, and they will not all arrive in designer clothes. I smiled slightly. In fact, some of them will probably look a lot like I did yesterday. And if you treat them the way Preston and Marcus treated me, you will be fired. No second chances. No excuses. Richard stepped forward and put his hand on my shoulder, a gesture of support. We are also implementing a new policy, he added. Any customer who feels they have been mistreated can report it directly to a hotline that goes straight to senior management. Every complaint will be investigated. Every legitimate complaint will result in action. He looked around at the staff. I know this is harsh. I know some of you are scared right now. But this is not about punishment. This is about returning to the values we started with. This is about remembering why we exist, to serve people, all people, with grace and respect. One of the younger saleswomen raised her hand tentatively. Mrs. Sterling, I was working yesterday. I saw what happened. I did not help you. I am so sorry. I looked at her. She could not have been more than 22 years old, her eyes red from crying. What is your name? I asked gently. Sarah. Sarah, you are not fired. But I want you to remember how you felt yesterday when you watched something wrong happen and did nothing. I want you to remember how you feel right now. And I want you to promise yourself that you will never stand by and watch someone be mistreated again, no matter who they are. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I promise. I swear I promise. I turned back to address everyone. I am not here for revenge, I said. I am here because I still believe in the company we built. I believe in second chances. But I also believe in accountability. So here is your choice. You can stay and be part of building something better, something kinder. Or you can leave and find a company that does not value human dignity. The decision is yours. Nobody left. The news coverage of that morning spread almost as fast as the original video. News outlets called it the reckoning at Sterling stores. Social media praised Richard for his swift action, but more importantly, they praised the message about treating all people with respect. The fired manager, Marcus, tried to sue for wrongful termination, but his case was quickly dismissed when the video evidence was presented in court. Preston faced criminal charges for assault and eventually pleaded guilty, receiving community service and probation. But the real change happened quietly over the following months. The Humanity Initiative rolled out across all our stores. Every employee, from entry-level sales associates to regional directors, went through a full day of training. They learned about unconscious bias, about treating people with empathy, about the lasting impact of small acts of cruelty or kindness. We brought in speakers who had experienced discrimination and let them tell their stories. We showed videos of customer interactions, some good and some terrible, and discussed what should have been done differently. And most importantly, we empowered our employees to step in when they saw mistreatment happening. We created a culture where speaking up was not just allowed but expected. The Secret Shopper program started 3 months after the incident. Richard and I personally trained the shoppers to dress simply, to test how they were treated, and to report honestly. In the first month, we fired 6 more employees for discriminatory behavior. In the second month, 3. By the 6th month, the firings had stopped because the culture had genuinely changed. Customer satisfaction scores went up. Sales actually increased because people felt welcome in our stores regardless of how they looked. Employees reported feeling prouder of where they worked, knowing they were part of a company that truly valued all people. I received thousands of letters from customers sharing their own stories of being mistreated in retail stores, not just ours but everywhere. They thanked me for speaking up, for using my privilege and platform to address something that affected so many people. Some of the letters made me cry. Others made me angry that this was such a widespread problem. But every single letter reminded me why what had happened to me mattered. It was not about me getting justice for myself. It was about creating lasting change for everyone who had ever been made to feel less than human because of how they looked. A year after the incident, I returned to the same store on the anniversary. This time I wore the same old beige coat, the same scuffed shoes. I tied my hair in the same simple bun. I wanted to see if anything had really changed. The moment I walked through the door, a young salesman approached with a genuine smile. "Good morning. Welcome to Sterling's. How can I help you today?" I smiled back. "I am just looking, thank you." "Of course. Please let me know if you need anything at all. My name is David and I will be right over here if you have any questions." I browsed for a while, watching the interactions around me. I saw staff members helping all kinds of customers with equal enthusiasm and respect. I saw a teenager with purple hair being treated the same as an older woman in a fur coat. I saw an employee stop to help a customer in a wheelchair reach something on a high shelf. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was better. So much better. Sarah, the young woman who had apologized that morning a year ago, was still working there. She had been promoted to assistant manager. When she saw me, her face lit up with recognition. "Mrs. Sterling," she said warmly. "It is so good to see you. Please call me Emma." "How have you been, Sarah?" "Good. Really good, actually. I have been leading some of the new employee training sessions for the Humanity Initiative. Sharing my experience, talking about what I learned." She paused. "I hope that is okay." "It is more than okay," I said. "It is exactly what should happen. We learn from our mistakes and then we teach others." She nodded, her eyes bright. "I just wanted to say thank you. That day changed my life. It changed how I see people, how I treat people. I am a better person because of it." I hugged her, something that surprised both of us. "You were always a good person, Sarah. You just needed to be reminded of your own values." As I left the store that day, I realized something important. The slap that had echoed through that store a year ago had created ripples that were still spreading. Not just in our company but beyond it. Other retailers had started similar programs. Other companies were training their employees differently. One act of cruelty had sparked a movement toward kindness. That evening, Richard and I sat on our porch watching the sunset. The same porch where we had sat the night after the incident, when everything felt broken and uncertain. "Do you regret it?" Richard asked quietly. "Going to the store that day? Getting hurt?" I thought about the question carefully. Did I regret the pain? The humiliation? The bruise on my face that had taken weeks to fully heal? "No," I said finally. "I do not regret it. If that had not happened, we would never have known how far things had fallen. We would have kept believing everything was fine while our employees treated people terribly. That video, as awful as it was, saved this company's soul." Richard reached over and took my hand. "You saved it. Your dignity, your composure, your refusal to seek revenge, that is what changed everything." I shook my head. "I did not save anything. I just held up a mirror. Everyone else decided what to do when they saw their reflection." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn from pink to purple to deep blue. "You know what the real victory was?" I said eventually. "What?" "It was not firing Preston or changing the policies or even creating the Humanity Initiative. Those things were important, but they were not the real victory." "Then what was?" I smiled. "The real victory was proving that dignity is not something anyone can take from you." Preston slapped me. He dragged me across the floor. He humiliated me in front of dozens of people. But he could not take my dignity because dignity comes from within. It is not about what you wear or how much money you have or whether other people respect you. It is about how you carry yourself, how you treat others, how you respond when the world tests you. Richard squeezed my hand. "You are remarkable, you know that?" "I am not remarkable. I am just someone who refused to become small when someone tried to make me feel small." And that, I realized, was the lesson I wanted to leave behind. Not just for our employees or our customers, but for anyone who had ever been made to feel less than they were. You cannot control how others treat you. You cannot force people to see your value. But you can control how you respond. You can choose dignity over revenge. You can choose grace over anger. You can choose to rise quietly, powerfully, and permanently. The slap echoed for one moment, but the lesson echoed forever. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in a year. Not because justice had been served, though it had. Not because policies had changed, though they had. But because I knew, deep in my soul, That one person choosing dignity in the face of cruelty could change the world. And sometimes that one person is you.